almost never work behind a lectern, but it's a pleasure being here tonight. I am Jeff Stein, Stein Financial Group. Pat, thank you. First, a little bit more about my relationship with Medica. We feel very fortunate to have partnered with them to provide financial wellness along with physical wellness. We came to the conclusion together that this benefited their members, this benefited Medica, because if you have somebody who is less stressed, who has their financial life in order, what you're finding is that they have fewer claims. You as an employer, if you have employees, if you've had your own financial issues, you know that there are things that are going to distract you. Days missed. Even worse maybe, what if they don't miss the day but show up for work but are completely distracted? What might be happening? Bad keystroke, bad manufacturing, all kinds of things. So these are very interesting times, and we feel very fortunate to be part of the Medica team now. Personally, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. We work with approximately 11,000 people. We have large groups that we work with on retirement plans. We do individual wealth management, about $80 million worth of individual wealth. And then we have consulting opportunities, our partnerships with Medica and things like that. So we're very fortunate, and we certainly feel like we've got our hands or our fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the marketplace today. What I wanted to touch on were things that keep me up at night, and maybe they keep you up at night also, but I find that my clients relate well when they hear maybe a little bit of a, well, this happened to me, could that happen to you? So let's just kind of think about some of these things. And I did leave you a handout if you wanted to take some notes or if you wanted to talk about this earlier. But some of you may have partners, and working with a partner is a nice thing. Generally, hopefully, you're bringing two different skill sets to the partnership. One person is good at one thing, the other partner is good at the other aspect of it. But what happens if that partner decides that they want to leave? It's a divorce. That's really what it is. And I don't know if any of you have gone through a divorce. Fortunately, I have not. But how do you separate that partnership? What's going on here? Have you thought about that? So if you're working with somebody, let's ahead of time think about, if worse comes to worse, how do we separate this partnership? What do we put in place that's going to take care of those things? A lot of these things, unfortunately, have happened to me. I started the business under a mentor-mentee relationship a long time ago, and my partner, after about 15 years, suffered a stroke. All right? This stroke was not something that killed him, but something that would not allow him to keep working. And yet, because of our relationship and because of a lack of agreement, either I was going to have to leave or he was going to have to decide that he was going to move on. Now, he was continuing to collect an income, and yet I had no leverage unless I was going to leave. Now, things ended up working out, but why put yourself into that position? How can you put yourself into a situation where, if worse comes to worse, this is how we're handling certain things? It's all about, how am I going to deal with this if it happens? What if that partner dies? Well, the classic response is, well, I'll take over. And I'll go, oh, really? What's going to happen is that you're going to have a new partner, and probably a partner who maybe you didn't want to have. So that partner may be the spouse or the significant other of that individual, or another family member that was part of that partner's family. So be prepared for that. What happens if these situations happen? If they take place, do we have a plan in place that will allow that person to be bought out? Or how is this separation going to occur? Get it in writing. A little later in the slide, you'll see that I say, do what you do best and have others do the rest. All right, find people that know what they're doing to help you set up the appropriate responses to these different situations. There's What if they leave? What if they die? Maybe this is a worst case scenario. What if they don't die, but they can't work? How do we handle that? How do we handle that if that's one of our employees, if that's our partner? My goodness, what's our policy on handling that? And by the way, you can't say, well, you know, for Joe, I can do this, but for David, we're going to handle it differently. You're opening yourself up to a lawsuit. And I'm not here to practice law or accounting. That's not my background. But I want you to be prepared for these things. I want you to think through what might happen. What happens if my partner and I are on a different page? And this probably goes full circle back to, I think we need to separate here. Things aren't working the way they should be working. How do we handle that? What happens if that situation happens? And it's difficult. You can think of it as a prenuptial agreement, as it would relate to a marriage, things like that. But how do we get things in writing that are going to deal with worst case scenarios should they take place? And by the way, some of you are individual practitioners right now, and you continue to be successful. Somebody else is going to come into your practice and to work with you. It might be an assistant, it might be a partner, whatever it might be. But the point is that you need to be prepared to deal with these things. Bring people into your life, into your business that can help prepare you in case sometimes worst case scenarios take place. What happens if it happens, I want to leave, I want to quit or retire? What plans have I made here? Am I just going to shut down my business? I had a conversation with a client last evening, and she said her husband, who is a very skilled carpenter, cabinet maker type of individual, I said, well, what happens when he decides to stop working? And they go, well, the business just shuts down. And for some, that's a logical outcome. That's just fine. But for other people, they're counting on their business being part of their retirement plan. All right, so how do we structure these things in order to have a value go forward and continue to pay you either in a lump sum on a separation or an ongoing income flow to take care of you? How do you handle those things? And what's the best way to do it? And there are a number of best ways, but the best way is what's best for you. And again, I would incorporate a professional to help you work through these different instances. What if I get sick and I cannot work? And that could be I become disabled or I get sick. If I'm a sole practitioner, what happens? Well, do I buy insurance? Do I have that in place? You know, that insurance, it's expensive stuff. And it's like wrecking your car. It's expensive until you need it, and then you're very thankful that you have it. But the point is whether you have it or not, just be prepared. Understand the trade-offs. If I don't pay for it up front by insuring it, or if I don't structure something in the way of I have employees that are as capable as I am, if the whole practice, for example, is about Jeff Stein, and Jeff Stein becomes disabled, what's the value there of the practice? And the answer is none or very little. So be prepared. Think these things through. Where do I want to be and what's it going to take me to get there? If I die, and by the way, that's the one thing I can guarantee you in my business is that you will die. So at some point it's going to happen. And how prepared are you for that event? Again, since I work with so many people, I can tell you all kinds of great stories and horror stories. Just a fascinating individual. They're both clients, husband and wife. The husband is out jogging, drops dead. Okay? It does happen. A relatively young guy in his 50s. The wife has no clue as to what's going on. And if you'd like, just send me a note. My card is in back, and I'll send you something called an asset inventory. And if you don't want to get it from me, you can find it on the internet, things like that. But what it is you're writing down all this different kind of information that would be important to your spouse, to your significant other, to your partner. So what are those things? Well, they're the obvious things. For example, like, well, we have a checking account here, and we have my 401k or my SEP or my IRAs or whatever are held here. But things that I think you need to include that you don't think about, what about your passwords? You know, how do I get into the computer? And for some of you computer people, you can say, well, it just ain't gonna happen. And that information is lost. So write down your passwords. And oh, by the way, they tend to change every 90 days, once a year, whatever. You've got to stay on top of this. What do you do with this information? Who should I call? What about Social Security? What about, my spouse worked for a public entity and they had a public pension, or a large corporation that had a pension. Who do I call? If I'm a sole practitioner, who do I call to help pick up the pieces of my business? Maybe this individual would be willing to step in and continue running it, at least to shut it down so that my clients are taken care of. Because not only do we want to take care of our families, but we want to take care of the people that have put trust in us to do certain jobs for them. Now, this individual created a medical device, and it had a significant value attached to it. He drops dead. All of a sudden, he's the business. People are scrambling to try to co-op all of this information and utilize it for themselves. On a personal side, they've got a boat in the driveway, they've got a truck in the garage. It's been 3 years, she's never started the truck, the boat is still sitting there. She just can't bring herself to do anything with these things. Just, you know, it's paralysis from analysis, it's paralysis from loss. How do we deal with these type of things? Think through it. If you love somebody, take the steps to make sure that it's taken care of. Now, that might be that we have enough dollars set aside to help you transition until you're able to get back on your feet again and be productive, whatever that definition might be. Maybe it's you have to go back to work. Maybe you never worked as the stay-at-home spouse, whatever the case might be, but now you must. Maybe you've purchased insurance because you want to have life insurance in place, that in a worst-case scenario, if I die, there's enough money to allow my spouse or whoever is important to continue to maintain their lifestyle for a period of time that might be for as long as they live. So all of these things should be taken into account. Then I've got, I'd like to provide health insurance. All right, I don't do health insurance. What I do is I've got 1-800 call Becky. And you know, it sounds very self-serving because she just spoke to you. But the lady's a powerhouse. And I wouldn't hesitate to call Joel. Both are great resources. I only send people out to others that are going to make me look better. All right? I can screw things up well enough myself. I need people that are going to make me look good. And Becky's, in fact, I've sent my own dad to Medica to call them up. And I believe he did end up with Medica insurance. But the bottom line is that if it's inappropriate, the people at Medica tell those people that I think you should go to Preferred One. I think you should go to Health Partners. It's such a unique relationship, and I just insist on leveraging that. So she's just a pleasure to work with. But the health insurance aspect, again, is it better to have somebody miss a day, or is it better to have supplied a benefit, a value added, that might retain this employee, attract smart people to your organization as you grow, something that will allow them to get through bumps in their lives, and we all hit those bumps, so a health issue comes up. Don't you want them to come back, to be there, to return to work as quickly as possible, things like that? Health insurance, just a key. The Affordable Care Act, it's a very interesting benefit today that allow people to get out and do the things that they want to do. Maybe I don't have to stay at this job, which I've disliked forever, because now I can go out and do what I really want to do and find health insurance because nobody can deny me. Have a retirement plan. You know, some of you may say, I love what I do. I don't think I'm ever going to stop working. Others are going to say, you know something, there's more to life than work. I'm kind of a whole person type of concept here, where there's work, there's life, there's play, all those things. I want to be part of that. I want to have a plan in place that's going to allow me to not work someday or to work less. And to do that, you have to set aside maybe a little bit of money today so that you have some tomorrow. You want to retire, and like I said, I have clients coming through every single day, and a lot of times tongue-in-cheek when I go, so when are you going to retire? And they go, today. And I go, that's fine. It may not be on the level that you'd like, but you certainly can. So how do we set things up so that you can do the things that you want to do, so that you don't have to be working every single day? How do you take care of yourself? Most of you, I would guess, spend your days taking care of your clients, other people. And I'm going to suggest that the first person you should be taking care of is yourself. And that being the case, what steps are you going to have to take to make that happen? One of those would be to maybe start setting aside a little bit of money. It can impact you if you do it a certain way positively tax-wise. It can help give you greater peace of mind. It's a tremendous safety net should things begin to unravel. 2008, client loses his job. He's accumulated some wealth in different plans, and he accesses some of that wealth to help him transition till he gets back to work again. You got nothing there, there's nothing to access. You've saved some money, and by the way, money will not buy happiness, I promise you that, but it goes a long way to making you more comfortable when you are aggravated. So, think about who should I be taking care of first in these different scenarios. I almost guarantee you that you're not going to be happy for the long term if you spend your days doing nothing but taking care of other people. And don't set yourself up to be sued. Duh. But the bottom line is that let's be smart about the things that we do. And again, I'm talking about making sure that we have things in place from a legal standpoint, from a planned document standpoint. How are we going to handle things as they come up? If you're going to start shooting from the hip, one of these times you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So just take it easy here. Let's think about what is the outcome here on a best case scenario, that we'd always like, on a worst case scenario, and probably how it's going to turn out someplace in the middle. So let's think through these scenarios and how we're going to make these things work. I hired somebody about 15 years ago. He had me convinced he was a world beater. He was going to do just a big number for me. I was disappointed, within months. We ended our relationship, and all of a sudden, naturally, in the mail comes the fact that he wants to take me to court. Now, by the way, I wish it was that clean that he'd just take me to court, because then it would be a one and done. But instead you get harassed forever, first just threatening because, well, I'm going to bring an attorney in if you don't, give me this, give me that. These are obnoxious things. You don't need that in your life. And if you take the proper steps and set things up appropriately, then you're going to be in a much better situation. I'm not going to tell you you're going to be bulletproof, but I'm going to tell you you're going to be in a much better situation as time goes on. And again, I think that circles back to you got to take care of yourself first. You got to take care of your business first. Are they two different things? Of course they are. But the point is, think about what's best for you, what's best for the business, and then let's take those steps. And then last is, what happens if somebody steals from you? What happens if there's a fire? What happens if somebody hurts themselves on your location? What happens, if there's a liability issue, that something that you had set up has caused a problem? Those things can happen. You have to be prepared for them. Do you have appropriate, for example, insurances in place? Now, I carry a significant amount of errors and omissions in insurance. I know looking at me, you'd go, this guy could never make a mistake. But, it happens sometimes. And sometimes those mistakes are expensive. And it can come out of your pocket, or if you've taken the right steps, potentially your insurance company is going to stand behind you. So be prepared for those type of things. Think these things through. You know, my suggestions, get your stuff in writing. These handshake agreements are nice, but if you don't have something to fall back on, you got nothing to say, you didn't do what it said here, so here's what I'm doing now because that's what we decided. Get those things in writing. Use an attorney. Use somebody who specializes in what they do. Don't use that attorney who does wills and trusts to write your business agreement. Don't use the guy or woman who writes your business agreement to write your will. All right? These are specialties. Use people that are good at what they do. If you can't afford the loss, I'm going to suggest you don't do it or insure it. All right? Because if you're walking that middle ground and bad things happen, and they will, then we got some real problems here, and it's going to cost you, it's going to set you back, it may shut you down. Plan for the worst, expect the best. So please do some planning here. Do what you do best and find others to do the rest. All right? In the beginning, and I was an entrepreneur. You know, you empty the wastebaskets, you answer the phones, you do the paperwork, you act as a liaison between you and the client and all that stuff. And maybe what you're really good at is one specific thing. I'm going to tell you to do that and find other people to help you here, whether that's attorneys or bookkeepers or accountants or insurance professionals. But these people are going to help keep you out of trouble. They're actually going to allow you to make more money because you're not wasting your time. And please take this in the right light. But you know, I make a significant wage, and yet if I'm sitting there filing papers, and let's say, you know, just pick a number, $200 an hour, that's a very expensive administrative person. I could find a lot of people to do that. You know, I could find 10 of them to do that. So do what you do best, and surround yourself with people that are going to support you. I can't tell you how it takes a weight off of my mind when I can call my attorney and say, I need this agreement written, here's what's going on in my business right now, how would you handle this? These are great support people to have. That's what I have. It was just a pleasure having a chance to talk to you. May I answer any of your questions? Go ahead.
I know there's key man insurance. Well, you're not talking insurance as much, but I think you mentioned something about to have things in place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're representing the financial side, but what do you usually recommend to people to have in place, you know, for their future?
Well, you mentioned the term key man. Is there somebody key in your organization? Are you more, maybe you're the key person. Well, what if you die and you've got a dozen other employees out there? What happens? How's that business going to stay afloat? Well, you know, I would suggest you either have enough cash on hand to make sure that the business can transition, or you've got enough insurance in place that's going to say that if this person dies, then there's enough money here that's going to allow this business to survive until we get that somebody with a similar skill set back in place to take care of us. That's a key person type of thing, but that's what I'd be setting up. Sure.
Jeff, are you fee-based
Yes,
organization?
I am. Some things, let me take that back. There's some things, for example, life insurance, that carries a commission attached to it, but otherwise all my other work is fee-based. Anything else? Patrick? It's a pleasure.